Hey, everybody, it's the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. It is Monday. The technical difficulties have been fixed. We've got audio. We've got video. I've got this new Browns t-shirt. It's pretty cool. Dick Chubb on there. And we got a lot to get to today. We will talk about the Browns later, of course. But I've got a lot of Guardians to discuss here as we start a podcast on a Monday with just less than 9 weeks to go till the regular season starts. And we are past in football, but we are now past the halfway point in the baseball season. Where do the Guardians stand and what's in store for them coming up next? Right here, it's the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Oh, yeah, baby. It is time. It is the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. And before we get going here, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Well, lately it's looked like when the game has started, the Cleveland Guardians have not realized that it's going on. The Guardians, about 3 weeks ago, we looked up. They had just completed a series with a nice road trip in which they concluded it by winning 2 of 3 against the Dodgers and 2 of 3 against the Twins. And we were all feeling good. But they did lose the last game of that series, that big road trip, 1-0. And it's been all downhill ever since. In fact, after going 19-4 during that stretch, ending with that Twins series, they have since lost 14 of their last 19 games, giving away almost all of what they gained during that stretch. So 2 games into the second half of the season, Guardians have played 83 games. They are under 500 at 41-42. If you look at obviously they're in second place, 4.5 games behind the Twins, half game behind the White Sox. In the wild card, they are tied with the Orioles, 2 games back of the tie for the third wild card spot between the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Now, there's a long way to go and a lot that the Guardians could do to turn it around. You know, let's talk about the good and the bad here. First of all, the bad is this weekend in particular. Like the 14 of 19 is one thing. That's really bad. But in particular this week, or I should say last week, now that we're Monday, I know it was on the road, which makes it a little more challenging, but you have 7 games on the road against the Tigers and Royals. Even on the road, the Guardians should at worst go 4-3 in that stretch. You know, the one thing they've done well this year until this past week was beat the teams they should beat. They've consistently done that. They've been a franchise that has done that quite often. The Tigers are 13 games under 500. The Royals are 20 games under 500. But those 2 teams took 6 out of 7 against the Guardians. In fact, the Guardians' offense, except for their 1 win this past week, where they scored 13 against the Royals, has been absolutely abysmal. This whole stretch, if you think about it, in this stretch where they've lost 14 of 19, they rallied late for those 2 wins over the Twins to win that series. And they obviously scored the 13 against the Royals on Saturday. And outside of that, the offense has been non-existent. I mean, they've only scored more than 4 runs 3 times in their last 19 games. And think about that for a minute. 3 times in their last 19 games. So they have been on a terrible stretch offensively. You have a lot of guys struggling right now. Jose Ramirez has started to come out of it, his slump. He had his first home run in a while on Saturday. But you have a lot of guys that are struggling over the last month. Obviously, we know Miles Straw hasn't hit at all this year. Owen Miller has completely gone off the cliff. You know, Reyes has got a little hot here, but the catchers can't hit. Rosario has cooled off a little bit after he had that really hot streak into early July, but he's cooled off a little bit. Jimenez has been steady. We know that. But clearly there are holes in this team, holes in this lineup, but it's not just the hitting. The pitching's been a big disappointment as well. If you look at the team, at the numbers here overall, they're not impressive. I mean, Tristan McKenzie, outside of those 2 bad starts in a row, has been really good and pitched well again over the weekend. Overall, his numbers look good. But Shane Bieber, I'm concerned about him. The amount of base runners he's allowing. I mean, 91 hits and 96 innings for him is a real high number. Even McKenzie, who's pitched real well overall, has been crushed by the home run ball. 16 home runs allowed on the season. Zach Plesac and Cal Quantrill are just, have been okay. And for the most part, Savali's been bad. Even in the bullpen, Eli Morgan, who I was raving about for much of the year, has really struggled of late. So there are things that Clase's done his job. He's been great. But you have a lot of struggling players on this team. And the one area you thought you could completely count on the rotation has overall been a disappointment. But I don't know if it's good news, but what I would say is you had to have expected this from the Guardians because this is what they've been all year. I mentioned this on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show last week. So the Guardians lost their first 2 games to start the year, and then now they've gone through 6 stretches that have just gotten longer and longer of where they've either been really, really hot, really, really cold. They lost their first 2, okay. Then they won 7 of 10, then they lost 7 in a row. Then they won 8 of 10, then they lost 10 of 14, and they won of 19 of 23. Now they've lost 14 of 19. That's what this team is, and we can't be surprised. When the season began, I thought the Guardians would be a low 70s win team. I think when it's all said and done, they'll be closer to an 80-win team, and they might be still in the mix at the beginning of September, which is what I thought they'd be, but they are probably not a playoff team. Certainly they're not as is. Now, I've been advocating for a while for the team to be ultra aggressive and do something here. We have 3 weeks to go before the trade deadline. I think 3 weeks and change, depending on when you're listening to this. And I'd love to see them be aggressive, but it's hard to really be optimistic that they will make the type of moves because this team needs some drastic upgrades. I mean, you've got 3 massive holes in the lineup. Right now, you got 1 outfielder you can trust. Naylor's a little banged up. And the catcher's obviously a disaster. You need help in the pitching staff. I do think an interesting development here is, and I'm very excited about this, that the Guardians have called up Nolan Jones. At one point, Nolan Jones was the prospect on the Guardians. Now, the shine on his star has dimmed a little bit. But I've never given up hope. Now, I don't know that he's going to be good or not. He's off to a tremendous start. So far, 13 trips to the plate. He's gotten on base 8 times. A double, a homer, 3 singles, and 3 walks in 13 trips to the plate. That's pretty darn good. 2 strikeouts. He'll strike out. And obviously not going to keep up this type of on-base presence. But the guy was a top prospect. He's got big-time power. He hits his first Major League home run. It looked like 500 feet. One of the biggest first-ever home runs I've ever seen. The ball was just absolutely tattooed. I think Nolan Jones has got to be in the lineup every day. He's a young player that I've been looking forward to seeing for a while. I'm glad they finally called him up. Again, red-hot start, but it's only 3 games. And unlike some of the other guys that have come up, this guy's got the pedigree. He may not be, at this point, as hyped a prospect as he was at one point, but he's still considered one of the better prospects of the Guardians, just no longer the top guy. But at one point he was. I mean, it was a second round pick 6 years ago at a high school. He's very, he's just 24, just turned 24. He was ranked as the a top 100 prospect by Baseball America and MLB and Baseball Prospectus heading into the 19, 20, and 21 season. Now, he got knocked out of the top 100 this year, but a lot of people that do this for a living, that grade these players, thought this guy was a really good player. Now, eventually, if you stall out a little in the minors, you start to drop as the young guys and people get caught up prisoner in the moment. But he was having a very strong season in Columbus this year. Not hitting for a ton of power this season. He only had 3 home runs and 10 extra base hits in 125 plate appearances, but he did a trim. We talked about him getting on base a lot. He's got his on base percentage in Columbus this year in the 23 games he played down there was .417. That's pretty impressive, and he's a guy who has nearly a 400 on base for his career in the minor leagues. The guy's got a good eye. He's just a really interesting player, and I do think he's got the power. And again, I know he hasn't hit for power in AAA this year. I do think he will eventually hit for power. He hit 59 home runs in about 479 games, so about 3 seasons. So he's equivalent to about 3 seasons worth of games. So he's averaged about what would be about 20 home runs per season. I think his power will continue to develop. Again, I've always been a big fan. I always thought he had a lot of potential. He was not great last year, and that kind of he didn't play at all in 2020 because of the COVID, and last year he wasn't great. And he struggled in the Arizona Fall League, I remember, in 2019. So he wasn't so he lost his hype a little bit. But, again, he killed it in the minors this year. And so far, so good through 3 games in the major league. So I would, I'm talking about you got to add some bats, and they do. They do, big time. But I'm very happy to see Nolan Jones get an opportunity, and hopefully, and the Guardians have brought up a lot of young hitters. Some of them have gotten hot, and then they've cooled off and disappeared. We've seen it before. But this guy is one of the more highly touted guys, a guy I've liked for a while, a guy I've talked about between the radio and I haven't really talked about him much on the TV show, but on the radio I was talking about him a lot, and I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table for the Guardians. Speaking of bringing things to the table, the Guardians, we found out today, had 3 players selected to the full rosters, not today, but over the weekend. The full rosters announced for the All-Star game. We'll talk about who's representing the Guardians, the All-Star game. Plus, I got a beef with people who have a beef with the All-Star game. I'll explain when we come back. That's next, right here. It's the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. Folks, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including Major League Baseball. BetOnline, your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. I love it, and you will too. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so first of all, before I get to specifically who made the All-Star team for the Guardians, I have a beef, and my beef is that people are nuts when it comes to the All-Star game. I don't understand. Listen, you folks know how much I love baseball, but it's crazy to me how I understand, like, people think Jimenez should start, for example, okay? Or Jose Ramirez, certainly. This is the way it goes. Like, our fans will get mad that those guys don't win, yet our fans will vote for, we have some fans, and every team, not just our fans, but every team has fans that will vote for guys like even Austin Hedges or guys who don't belong in the All-Star team because they vote for their own guys. So we can't be surprised that other teams' fans do that too. Now, overall, I think the fans did a very good job of getting a lot of the right guys in. And there's always going to be some mistakes, and usually they'll be made up. There's injured guys, and guys will be replaced, and we'll see if they get it. I think baseball should change the way they do the All-Star game. I think having to I can't even say it. Being forced to have a guy from every team, I think, is a mistake. I think the home stadium should have a guy, fine. So, like, it's games in Los Angeles, so obviously the Dodgers have to have a player, which they would anyway. But I don't see why every team, it doesn't make sense to me that every team has to have one. I don't get it at all. That's the thing. Another thing, I think it was a great job by the commissioner to put Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera on the All-Star team as a Lifetime Achievement Award, because obviously neither of them has earned their way on the team. Neither one is a good player at this point. They're playing out the string. They're great leaders. They're Hall of Famers, all-time great players. But what I don't like about it is, why are they taking a roster spot? Why not just add an additional spot for those two guys? Well, it doesn't make any sense. They haven't earned an all-star spot. Bringing those two guys are on, fine. But putting them in instead of two guys that actually deserve it is ridiculous. And, and again, you have, as I mentioned, like in the National League, Joe Mantiple is on the team. He's a relief pitcher. I'm sure none of you have heard of this guy. Probably maybe one of every 100 of you know who he is. He's a relief pitcher. He's done a nice job this year for Arizona, but he shouldn't be an all-star. But they have to have a player, so he's there. And meanwhile, there's going to be deserving players. But ultimately, what are you going to do? It's an all-star game. The fans get to vote. People get so angry about who's starting and worked up about it. I don't get worked up about it. I'll discuss it, and I'll say, okay, yes, Jose Ramirez should be starting, and Andres Simenes should be starting, but it's not that big a deal. In terms of specifically for the Guardians, I've already mentioned two of the guys, Jose Ramirez and Andres Jimenez. The third member of the Guardians to make the All-Star team, of course, is Emmanuel Clase. Well-deserved. All three guys, Guardians do not have a player on there that doesn't deserve it. Ramirez obviously is in the MVP conversation, although he has struggled the last few weeks. We know Clase has been one of the best closers in baseball. He's done a tremendous job. I think he's one of the most reliable closers out there. And Andre Jimenez has had just a beautiful season for the Guardians. And what's remarkable, if you think about this, and I'm not, unlike a lot of fans here, I'm not someone who likes, crapping all over Francisco Lindor. And Lindor might eventually get into the All-Star game. But the fact that you made this blockbuster trade and the Mets traded for Lindor, gave up a ton of prospects and a ton of money to Lindor, and Andres Jimenez makes an all-star game before Lindor. That's if you're in the front office of the Guardians, if you're Chris Antonetti, if you're Mike Chernoff, you got to pat yourself on the back a little bit. This trade right now looks like a great one. And Lindor's having a good season and is a borderline all-star and may get on there eventually. But for now, he is not. Right? The Mets had a few guys make it, but Francisco Lindor did not get on the team. And Andres Simenes has had just a fantastic season. Let's see. The Mets got NL reserves. Who did the Mets get? Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, of course, Jeff McNeil. And am I wrong? Did Francisco Lindor make it? I thought the Mets had four guys. I don't know. I'm probably missing it. But I don't think Lindor made the team. I'm pretty sure he didn't. If he did, then I'm just rambling incoherently at this point. I can't find the fourth Met. I thought there were four. This doesn't matter. We'll figure it out later. But no, I don't. I'm pretty sure Lindor didn't make it. One other cool thing from the All-Star game, two brothers made it. Cubs catcher Wilson Contreras and Braves catcher William Contreras, who was in the minor leagues to start, wasn't even supposed to play for the Braves this year. Become the first time brothers. It's the first time two brothers will start. How are they going to start? Both start. I guess one of them is going to DH. Both will start. First time two brothers will start an all-star game since, of course, players you folks know very well, Roberto Alomar, Sandy Alomar Jr. in 1992. So that's really cool that those guys will both be in the starting lineup. But as for the Guardians guys, extremely impressive that the three of them made it. Well deserved, all three guys. I've been so impressed with Andres Simenes. I did not think he would be. I'll be honest. I did not think he'd be this good a player. I thought he'd be, okay. But he has just been phenomenal. I mean, you look at it. Last year he only played 68 games, but the numbers across the board, and he's a 3-win player in WAR. I mean, he's on pace to be a 6-win player. That is fantastic. He's hit for some power with the 9 home runs. He's done a tremendous job of getting on base. Decent speed, decent defense. He's knocked in 40 runs, which, considering he doesn't get a ton of extra base hits, is pretty impressive. He's been very clutch in late game situations. Yeah, I'd like to see for a guy who doesn't hit for a ton of power, him cut down the strikeouts a little bit. But the reality is that's just kind of how the game is played today. So I don't think there can be much done about it. But the bottom line on the Guardians is I understand why people are panicking. This past week's been awful. I understand your frustration, but I'll say in the end, this is probably what we should have expected. The record is, 1 game under 500, 83 games in. Not surprising. Maybe you're surprised how it's happened with extreme peaks and valleys, but you shouldn't be. We've talked about this many times. The Guardians are the youngest team in baseball. They have a younger average age than every Triple-A baseball team. Think about that for a minute. And so you would expect peaks and valleys from an extremely young team, and that's exactly what happened, or what has happened to this point. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we still got a lot to do. We'll talk some Deshaun Watson. I got some odds and ends in the world of sports, too. Some interesting things I've watched over the last week that, things I wouldn't normally watch. I'll get to that coming up next, right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. And I'm back. Here I am. Where did I go? I don't know what the heck happened. I'm back, and I got to talk to you about this. So, first of all, today, right? Today's the 11th? Yes. Today is the day that the briefs are due with Judge Robinson from the league and Deshaun Watson's camp. And what that means is we're getting closer to a decision, I guess, right? Now she'll have all the evidence, all the information she needs. She heard, a lot of this. Look at my hair. It's a disaster. Jeez. And so hopefully we're getting closer to a decision. I mean, most of us thought it was going to happen a week ago. Now we're just hoping it happens before training camp, because if Deshaun Watson gets suspended for a long time, the Browns could still have the opportunity maybe to make a deal. I don't know. I think we've said this before, we all want this to be over. We all want it to be settled. We just want to know, what is it going to be? I'll say what I've said for months. I still think Deshaun Watson is going to get suspended for 8 games. I'm even more optimistic than I've been based on what we've been hearing in the last week. But the reality is nobody knows for sure not only what happened, but what's going to happen in this situation. So we will continue to wait. We will continue to hold our breath. Again, we are now less than 9 weeks from the start of the regular season. We are less than a month away from the preseason. And we're less than 3 weeks away from training camp. It's all coming. It's all right around the corner. All right, a couple of quickies here. I don't care about the NBA Summer League. I'm excited that I shouldn't even say I'm excited. I'm not. I don't know why anybody cares. I couldn't believe after that first Summer League game, the kid who was, what's his name? I got to look at his name. The NBA draft, the kid that was drafted really high. Chet, what is his name? Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren. He plays his first summer league game against mostly guys will be playing in the G League this year. And he had a really good game, and then everybody went nuts. Even my guy Tyvis Powell went nuts. Oh, I might have been wrong. People saying I might have been wrong about this guy. First of all, it's the summer league, and it's one game. Everybody has lost their mind. It's like, because it's on TV, we give it more credibility. I don't know. I do know that Ochai Agbaji, I'm probably screwing up his name, the Cavs pick out of Kansas, has not looked good so far. But again, I don't care. I don't care. This is summer league. It's just a chance for these guys to get some experience playing against other rookies and second and third year guys, young players. You take it for what it is. I mean, to read too much into one game, even a whole summer league season, let alone just one game, is really nuts to me. But people go crazy. They see a guy play one game in the summer league, and it's like now they're experts in this guy, and I don't know. It's pretty bizarre. All right, next thing. As we go rapid fire around some things I checked out this weekend. I shouldn't say things I checked out, because the first thing I didn't check out, I didn't actually watch any summer league. I don't know why anybody would. Although my man Jason Lloyd's been out there. So we'll talk. Actually, Jason, if you're listening to this before Monday's Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, then we will talk to Jason today. If you're listening to it during or after, then Jason was on the show today. He's in studio with us. Okay, so next, Wimbledon. Now, I'm not a big tennis guy. I don't know how much you folks care about tennis, but I'm fascinated by this guy, Nick Kiragos. He lost in the championship round of Wimbledon to Djokovic, who's an all-time great player, the number one player in the world. He played a great first set, won 6-4, and then lost 3 in a row, including a tiebreaker to end it in the final set. But what's interesting about this guy is he's a character, right? He's been around for a while. I never heard of him. I'm not a big tennis guy, obviously. I have to ask my man Dustin Fox about him. But for those of you who are old enough to remember, it seems like he's reminding me a little of John McEnroe. Like McEnroe used to go nuts. He used to yell at people. Guys, got annoyed playing him. He would yell at the officials. This guy is hitting balls between his legs. He's got the tattoos, which you don't usually see from tennis players. He's consistently yelling at the umpire or whatever they call the person in the chair. I think it's the umpire in tennis. He's just a little crazy, a little out there. He's from Australia. But he's an interesting guy. I think it's good for tennis. I mean, you need some personality. These guys, Nadal and Federer and Djokovic, these guys got no personality. I mean, there's a lot of people that love tennis. I know Lynn on Twitter, Lynn Myers, a big tennis person. As I mentioned, my pal Dustin Fox is a big tennis guy. But I'm not a big tennis person. I liked tennis when I was a kid, but I got into this. I watched not the entire Wimbledon final, but I watched a lot of it. I was kind of in and out. I watched a lot of the first set, kind of went away for a little bit, and came back. And I saw the entire fourth set. It was intriguing, and a lot of it, even though he ended up losing, was Kiragos. Again, I can't remember I watched the whole match today. I can't remember how they pronounce his name, but it was fun to watch. Couple other quickies. I watched a few minutes of the Tour de France. Man, that is boring. It's amazing to me that people are up in the countryside. Why? I mean, how boring. It's kind of boring to ride a bike. And I mean, I love bike. I shouldn't say I love it. Biking is great. It's amazing exercise. But it's kind of boring. And watching people bike, God, can't believe people watch that. But I put it on for 5 minutes. I'll tell you something else I watched this weekend, and I watched it a couple times over the past week when I've had just a few minutes here and there to kill or whatever. I'm going to ice my ankle or whatever. They got ESPN has been showing this tag competition. Yes, tag, like you play when you're 8 years old. And it's almost like an obstacle course. And you got, I think for 15 seconds you have to evade the tagger from the other team. And these guys are super good at it. I would be terrible, but it's fascinating. I watched a few minutes of cornhole this weekend. My son and I watched a few minutes of axe throwing this weekend. It was wacky stuff. By the way, in terms of TV and movies, watch the rest of Stranger Things. Amazing. Watch the finale of The Boys. If you don't watch Stranger Things or The Boys, you're missing it. Two great shows. Great third season for The Boys. Great fourth season for Stranger Things. And in the movies, I want to see the new Thor movie, but I didn't get a chance to go this weekend. So don't spoil it for me out there. I think I'm going to try to go next weekend. All right, make sure you please follow me on Twitter at Adam the Bull. Check out my Cameo profile. Search for Adam the Bull on Cameo. I've made a few videos already in the first week and change I've been on there. They've been really fun. Guys have enjoyed those. And to make sure you listen to the podcast every day. Now that we're back and working smoothly on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, make sure you subscribe on Apple or Spotify. And we'll be here every weekday is the plan now that we got it cooking again. And, of course, make sure you're watching the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, streaming live on YouTube weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be another great week on the show this week. Jay will rejoin the program on Tuesday. And I will also rejoin you on Tuesday in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. See you, everybody.